87% of companies want to implement more AI either in their company specifically or with their workforce. And the largest answer of why they have not done that is they do not have enough AI talent available. Now, also in a similar study, they were asking managers and workers about their use of AI. How many of them are using it and how many of them are hiding that they're using it compared to how many companies have some kind of policy around it. So over half of employees were using it. Of those, a third of people were hiding it. And not only that, a third of the managers were hiding it also. So you've got companies where more than half the employees and managers are using AI of some kind to do their job. A third of them are hiding it. And the C-suite and the board of directors and the people at the top making the decisions are saying, we don't have anybody in our company who knows how to use AI. So there's this disconnect, right?
Welcome to the AI Grapple. My name is Kate vanderVoort, founder and CEO of Social Mediology and the AI Success Lab. On today's episode, I am joined by Matt Rouse, author of Will AI Take My Job?, founder of Hook Digital Marketing and the AI-powered platform SMB Autopilot. With a deep background in tech, from working with Intel and Nike to helping small businesses stay ahead in digital marketing, Matt brings both sharp strategy and grounded thinking to the AI conversation. In this episode, we unpack the real question on everyone's mind: is AI coming for our jobs? Matt shares why the answer isn't black and white, how businesses can avoid AI mistakes that cost more than they save, and why the biggest advantage right now is messing around with AI before you even need to. We talk AI adoption, business strategy, universal basic income, and even his surprising alter ego, the AI chicken wrangler. Whether you're a marketer, business owner, or just trying to stay employable, this conversation will challenge how you're thinking about AI and what to do about it. Hello, Matt, and welcome. It is great to have you on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
It's evening for you, morning for me, so let's dive right in. Why don't you start by giving us a bit of background professionally about how you've come to be where you are and writing and working in the AI space?
Sure. So way back in the late 90s, I was working with a tech support group, and when cable modems were first out, and that was, pre-fiber internet to your house, of course. And through that, I started working in information systems and IT. And then I went to work in the United States at Intel. And I worked with Intel on and off for several years, and Nike and some other large companies down there. And I met my business partner working there at a data center, who's my current business partner. And we were working together so much, we merged our businesses and kind of formalized our company back in 2014, so almost a dozen years ago now. And we both have a software development and IT background, so everything technical is something that's interesting to us. And we run a marketing agency with a heavy focus on the technical side. So AI, of course, as soon as I saw it, I was like, my God, this is magic, right? And it's the kind of magic I haven't seen since I was typing in programs into an 8-bit computer out of the back of a CompuServe magazine in the 80s, and then it does something. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a magic box. And the AI is definitely a magic box, but it's also a bit of a black box, right? So it could be a little frightening to people as well. And, in some cases with good reason. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. I have been always interested in writing. The Will AI Take My Job? Is my 8th book. And I've written 7 other business books for small businesses. One of them was about SEO back in 2015. I wrote about local search marketing, which is how we developed the strategy for the SMB Autopilot AI. We call it AI plus human program that we've built, which is short version is it's a local SEO marketing program that uses an AI system to check if things are done correctly or not and look for opportunities. And then it hands those off to a human to do the work.
Amazing. All right. Well, we'll go into each of those bits that you've just highlighted. But coming back to your book, I'm particularly interested in this. Your book is called Will AI Take My Job?
Yeah.
And it tackles a question that a lot of people, I think, are pretty anxious about. So what inspired you to write the book, and what are some of the things we need to explore when we're looking at whether AI is going to take our job?
Well, everybody kept asking me if AI is going to take everyone's jobs because I am the technical person that they know. And most of the people that I know and people that I work with are non-technical people. And, it's a valid question. All they hear on the news is, oh my gosh, this thing is amazing and it's going to take everyone's job. And then the next day it's a news story about how much it sucks and it only makes pictures of people with 6 fingers and 3 legs. And the next day it's going to destroy the universe. And nobody seems to be able to make up their mind and have valid, well-researched, well-thought-out information about where AI is headed. And I wanted to give people a down-to-earth look at it, as well as some strategies, in my opinion, that at least can, put them ahead of the curve on, like, not necessarily just keeping their job, but also keeping your business or keeping your business and yourself relevant in an AI age.
And we'll definitely come to some of those strategies in a moment. But is part of the challenge that no one actually really knows? It's still so early when it comes to generative AI and how that's going to impact us personally, professionally, the whole of humanity. So how did you approach that with your book, given there isn't a huge amount of research and data available so early on?
Right. So this was written in October of 2023. And I am working on Will AI Take My Job 2 right now. So that should be out in a couple months. But when it comes to certain things, we kind of have a little bit of a peek into the crystal ball. Like scaling laws is one of those things. So scaling laws, as much as people argued about it, the people who I looked into who are experts in the field, the majority of them all said scaling laws will hold true, meaning the more compute that we put behind our AI systems, the smarter they are going to become. And the more productive that they will be, the more capable they will be. And that has held true. Also, the pace of scaling has kept true. So it's roughly like Moore's law, so the doubling of computer power every 18 months. The AI law, which eventually will probably be a law of some kind. The AI law roughly states that the current level of AI technology will become 1/10 of the price every year, and it will double in productivity and power every 6 to 12 months. Now that's going to be 6 to 12 months, really depends on how you track it, because nobody can really agree on how we're going to measure it. So computing power is easy. You can just say, how many calculations a second can this do? But AI, you're like, how good of a research paper can it write? Well, depends who you ask, right? So
I'm having a lot of fun at the moment with the new deep research in ChatGPT Pro. It's certainly quite mind-blowing in terms of what it would take a human to compile the same level of research. When we're looking at this as a whole topic of whether AI is going to take our job, what are we talking about here? You see statistics thrown around. There's the World Economic Forum and all sorts of different papers and guesstimates, I guess, that are being made. What's your high-level overview of what the job market's going to look like and how AI is changing that?
Right. Well, everybody seems to have their own idea of what it's going to look like. They also do it all at a different time frame. So there's no consistent basis to measure, how everybody's feeling about things and when it's going to happen. Historically, we know that the people making the technology and deeply involved with the technology assume that it's going to happen sooner than it actually does. And that
they have a vested
adoption,
interest, right?
right. Adoption always takes longer. The other thing is there's two things. One is the pendulum kind of swings both ways with these things. So every time a new technology comes on board, there is kind of the early adopters, and then there's a backlash for a while, and then it swings back again, right, before it moves forward. So you get this kind of like adoption curve that goes up, and then it flattens for a bit, and then it goes up again. So that's another thing that makes it take longer. And then lastly, there's a lot of people and jobs and regulation in the world around trust of certain types of data. So that could be medical data, financial data, trust where people don't trust a computer to make the decision for them, whether it is behind the scenes or not. They still want to talk to a human being. And usually that's in things like finance, of course, and medical. It could be psychological, relationship-wise, things like that. So all of those parts, and that technically is a lot of jobs, right? A lot of those things will be very difficult to automate, and maybe we don't even need to automate some of them, right? Some of those things might be better served if that person doing the job had a tool that does the things that they need it to do, whether that's AI or not, and then they have the interpersonal relationship. Some of those things are done over, like getting therapy over Zoom has been a thing since the pandemic. And I mean, that honestly, I hate to say it, but that's a nail in the coffin for in-person therapy. Because if you look at a program like HeyGen or Be Human, where I can just record this amount of myself, and then I can record my voice and clone it, and in real time, it can make reactions to people and talk back to them on video. Well, that's, that's anything that happens on Zoom, right? Now, is that going to happen anytime soon? Yeah, not immediately, right?
I think one of the things you've touched on there that we grapple with a lot on this podcast, but that I don't see happening to any meaningful level, I guess, is how bumpy the next few years are going to be. Because you're right. I think, there's going to be a massive backlash towards AI from whole professions, whole sectors of society. We've already seen it with, the writers' strike in the US, and here in Australia, we had a really large supermarket chain striking before Christmas last year, where there was, very little food on the shelves because they were doing an enterprise bargaining agreement where they were saying they don't want to be replaced by AI, and the company can't guarantee that that's not going to happen. And one of the
there's a double-edged sword there, if you won't let me interrupt about that specific thing, is there's the double-edged sword of saying we need to have collective bargaining to say that our company will not replace us with AI. But if another company does not have that happen and they use AI, they may pull further ahead of the other company, and then everybody loses their job anyway.
Absolutely.
So there needs to be some kind of give and take in that process, I think. And sorry to interrupt you, but I just thought that was important to know.
I think one of the things that's happening is that we talk about this first level of impact, but there's a second and third tier level. So if you look at a large portion of society may lose their jobs or have to retrain or have a significant impact from AI, those people are far less likely to want to engage with AI in the companies that they buy from or the roles that they then go for. So it will be really interesting to me, and it's an issue we keep grappling with, but just how that ride is going to be fairly bumpy over the next few years. Do you touch on that in your book about how it is that we're going to be able to deal with the peaks and troughs of that?
Yeah, I mean, without being able to say specifically when things are going to happen to people, it's difficult to kind of make that sort of prediction. But I think one of the biggest things we need to worry about is the equivalent in the computer world would be cascade failure. That's when one problem causes two problems, and each of those two problems causes two more problems, and it just until there's so many problems, the whole thing breaks down, right? So what happens when knowledge workers in general lose their jobs, like half of them, say? And I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but let's just say for the sake of argument, half of them lose their jobs. That's hundreds of thousands of people in Australia, right? It's millions in the United States, the UK, Canada, and all over Europe. We're talking about, 200 million people losing their job. Now, what happens is at the start of that, the people who lost their job first, they go find all of the currently available jobs. And then everybody who gets laid off after that can't get a job anymore because everybody's already taken all those jobs, right? So there's no one's hiring because everybody's laying everyone off. And then when all those people are getting laid off, they start to kind of sideline to other industries, right? Where they have a skill set that's above what is needed for the next job down, which pushes out the people who would have that job. Now, you also get this effect where we saw in COVID time, where if nobody's going to the office, all the businesses that are supported by the office workers go broke. Right? All the little convenience stores and the hair salons and the restaurants and the cafes and everything, they all start to go broke too. So now nobody's got a job, so nobody's spending any money. And then all the side industries go broke. And now all those people have to find jobs. And this is like I said, cascade failure, right? It goes down. And the government, any government, is too slow to react to that kind of failure, right? I mean, we learned that again through COVID, right? The reaction is, it's too little, too late. They did the best they could with, let's just say for the record, with the available evidence that they had. But the financial help wasn't there fast enough. And this is the same thing that could happen with AI. And one thing, and this is kind of an aside, but I'm a big fan of the idea of universal basic income, which also sometimes they call it big. It's basic income guarantee, depending on which country you're in.
Definitely not an aside. It seems like it's actually one of the only sound potential ways of dealing with what we're about to face.
Well, it's true, because let's say hypothetically, AI wipes out a whole bunch of jobs. Well, the other byproduct of that is no one has any money to spend. So what do those companies do? Now they're sure they got AI for cheap, but they're broke because nobody can pay their bill. Everybody, you have another mortgage failure because that happens. I don't want to get into all the aspects of how bad things could get if that happened. But that's worst case scenario, right? So I think you can also look at it that it takes a long time, and there may be a whole bunch of jobs and things created that we don't really know what those are going to be yet. That may kind of tide us over to a time when we can have some kind of basic income, because I firmly believe that if we get to the part of AI where it's what people would consider AGI, which is, artificial general intelligence that is generally better at all productive tasks, or most productive tasks than an expert level human. That level of AGI then is the level that can essentially run a corporation. So if you've got a corporation that is a board of directors, a handful of people, and a crap load of AI systems that replaces what used to be a 30, 40,000 person company, what do the other 39,950 people do for work? So
yeah, and it's interesting though, right? Because in the early days, there's going to be a lot of companies that get this wrong, and we've already seen, and this isn't necessarily that they got it wrong, but Salesforce have pivoted right into AI agents. They employed 2,000 people to sell AI agents for Salesforce, and then a month later laid off 1,000 people who were no longer needed in their roles based on the pivot that Salesforce. So do you advise or do you have recommendations for companies or businesses who are looking at replacing humans with AI about how to navigate that? Because I think we're going to see a lot of catastrophe where humans are replaced too early with AI. Decisions are being made that have got a really substantial and significant impact. And those decisions start being made by AI. There's the potential for that to go wrong. You know, do you have sort of some things that companies or businesses ought to be considering before they make the decision to replace humans with AI?
Right. Well, 99.9% of companies are not asking the AI for a decision and just going with it, right?
At the moment.
At the moment. And, you know, that's going to change with some of the deep research stuff, you know, but I still think it's going to be grain of salt, right? They go through it and they go, oh, this is incredible. This does what my research team used to do faster, you know? But they still need the research team to go look it up and make sure it's factual and make sure it's correct, right? So, you know, maybe they reduce some workforce, but I would say for the most part, you're not going to see that right away because nobody trusts it, for one, right? Another kind of big problem for large organizations is they want to have more people using AI. Okay, so another thing, this is interesting, is that in a recent survey, I think it was a Deloitte survey from January 2025, they said something like 87% of companies want to implement more AI either in their company specifically or with their workforce. And the largest answer of why they have not done that is they do not have enough AI talent available. Now, also, in a similar study, they were asking managers and workers about their use of AI. How many of them are using it and how many of them are hiding that they're using it compared to how many companies are, you know, have some kind of policy around it. So over half of employees were using it. Of those, a third of people were hiding it. And not only that, a third of the managers were hiding it also. So you've got companies where more than half the employees and managers are using AI of some kind to do their job. A third of them are hiding it. And the C-suite and the board of directors and the people at the top making the decisions are saying, we don't have anybody in our company who knows how to use AI. So there's this disconnect, right?
It's one of the conversations I have a lot in boardrooms when we're doing this kind of consulting. And it's interesting because it's almost like, and I'm not sure how it is in the US or in Canada, but here in Australia at the moment, there's still a little bit of this attitude of using AI as cheating. And I think that's why people are hiding that they're using it. They want to come off as being smarter than they are. It's not just so much a productivity thing, but there is still this sort of, well, if I admit to using AI, then I'm almost doing myself out of a job.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, you might be dynamic.
I mean, that's not a question, right? It's if the company finds out 50% of the tasks in the company are being done by AI, then their first thought is how I could get rid of half the employees, right? But that's not the right way to think about it. And unfortunately, a lot of corporations, you know, make their decisions with a red pen. But if you think about if every employee that I have, if you average it all out, could be, say, 10% more effective using some basic AI tools and training, then our company could be 10% more productive. And any large corporation, I would argue that a 10% gain is massive, right? If you're $1 billion company, that's $100 million you just got. Congratulations. You didn't have to lay anybody off, right? Now, not every company could just make more widgets or whatever it is that they do, right? So sometimes you're going to have some losses there. But also, there are cases where the AI system that's currently available now can do a better job than the humans that are currently doing the job. And that is a tough nut to swallow if you're one of those humans, right? So
it's one of the things, though, about human-centered AI adoption, which I'm very passionate about. And as you say, if you can actually bring the best of your talent and bring the humans to the fore and then use AI to increase productivity, which ultimately can increase the impact of the company, which also includes bottom line. But I think a lot of them are not necessarily looking at the long game, which is if you can actually free up your humans to be more human, to serve your customers in better ways and to be which I get is a bit of utopia for some companies. It's like, that's nice and all, Kate. And what if we can just get AI to do that for us? So when you're looking from an individual perspective, when people are fearful about potentially doing themselves out of a job by using AI, what are some of the strategies and frameworks, I guess, that you use or that you talk about in your book that can help people navigate this time?
Well, there's been a whole bunch of papers written, since kind of GPT-4 came out about how much more productive does using an AI system like GPT make a person. And what seems to happen, if you kind of average them all out, and this is, I know it's not the very scientific way to do it, but say you have people who are in the top, 20 percentile of their, whatever it is that they do for a living. AI is going to help them maybe become, top 15% instead of top 20%. But somebody who's like the bottom 30%, it can bring them up to like the 75, 80% level. So the question is, do you say, do I keep all my A players and make them slightly better? Or do I keep the lower players who are cheaper and have them be up to the level of the better players, or some kind of mixture in there, right? That's really tough. That's kind of an industry by industry decision. But if you look at something like customer support, and this is a sticky one because a lot of people have run into very bad experiences with automated technical support. And a lot of times, what they think is AI tech support is an algorithmic-based chatbot or something that they've bolted some AI onto the side of it, and it's not really an AI chatbot, right? So there's a company that I won't name them outright. They had 400 people in essentially a call center. It was chat-based support, so they're typing, they're not on the phone. What they did is they brought in a chatbot that they trained with all the answers and all the access to information that the people normally have. And the average length of time that somebody would wait to get their question answered by humans was 5 minutes. And the average for the AI was 5 seconds. So obviously there was a speed advantage. But when they went and looked at the post surveys of people chatting, the AI scored 5 points higher on customer satisfaction ratings than the humans did. So they said, let's cut the staff in half. We'll put the AI in, see if it keeps performing. And it did. It outperformed the humans again. So what they ended up doing is they kept 5 people, and those 5 people were their best people at figuring out all the edge cases. Where is it that the AI could not get the person the right answer? That's what those people's job was, and everybody else is gone. And I think the lesson in there is you either need to be the expert in your group if your group of people is kind of threatened by AI, or you need to move to another job that's similar in a different industry that doesn't allow AI, like finance or, mortgage or something like that. Healthcare is a good one. Or you need to be the person who is kind of the implementer of the AI system, right? So even if, IT is the people who are going to be bringing it into your part of the organization, somebody has to be the implementer. Somebody's the trainer, somebody, you need to be that person.
And interestingly, that's not necessarily just a technological role. Like I think a lot of people go, oh, well, I could never manage AI. Some of these skills, and I've heard it called, AI orchestrators or conductors, or, there's a bunch of different terms being thrown around at the moment. But what's interesting to me is that they're not necessarily technologically based roles. It's about bringing the wisdom and experience and expertise to the AI, not so much just the tech side of them.
And how much technical expertise do you need to talk to a chatbot, right? I mean, not a
Or
lot.
to
That's the
manage
whole
a
point,
chatbot.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The point is to say, to play around with it, mess with it, use it, learn how it works. I like to say it's akin to learning like a musical instrument or like some kind of art form, because there's not a technical list. Like you can't say, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you're always going to get the exact same answer, right? Everybody gets a different answer. It might be similar. I mean, hopefully it's similar, but you know, so learning how to speak to it, how to kind of get better responses. I like to call it partnering with AI. So instead of thinking of it, a lot of people say, oh, it's a tool. Well, you're putting in your brain that I'm going to use this like a tool. Like people use software, like algorithmic software, but it's not like that, right? It's more akin to like a person who has like a computer chip in their brain that has every piece of knowledge that was ever printed, right? And your job is to talk to that person who may be like an inexperienced intern who's also knows everything, right? They're just not good at getting you the information. So you got to kind of coax them a little, right? And that's going to change as the models get better. But right now, you really need to work with them and learn how to get the best out of the tools that you're using. And I mean, we can talk more about tools and stuff too. But there is one thing that I think is interesting that, when I talk to people, they kind of like their brain kind of disconnects for a second. And that's like when you use ChatGPT, the chat system is not ChatGPT. The chat interface is just an interface, right? It's not the AI. The AI model is GPT-4 or GPT-4o. So if you pick up your phone and you hit the button and you talk to it, the voice is going straight into it. It's not being translated into text and then put into the model. It's just like it was going in somebody's ears and it speaks back out to you out of its mouth, right? And when you're on ChatGPT, it chats back and forth with you like text. So it's important to remember that the interface is not the system. And so you have to, conduct the way that you talk to it as if you were chatting with someone over text.
And so what are some of those industries or those jobs that you think are safest from this AI transition or the automation of a lot of jobs that we're seeing?
Well, it's a tough one because there's a lot of technologies that are converging. And this is a blind spot for most people. I would say, 8 out of 10 people that I talk to say, AI can't do my job, right? And of those, I'd say half of them, I'd be like, yeah, and it probably could, but I'm not going to, we won't get into it. But the other half, they don't see the convergence of other technologies. So a good example is drones, for example. So drones and AI and worldview mapping are all coming together, plus advancements in battery technology make them lighter and faster and charge for longer. Solar panels are great. And you put all these technologies together, and there's a place in Southeast Ontario in Canada that has an orchard, and they have developed this machine that is essentially a robot. It's a tractor. It's 100% electric. It's run on solar panels, and it has drones that fly up, check if it with a camera to see if it believes the apple is ripe or not, sucks it off the tree with a suction cup, sorts it into the correct box, and it drives down through the orchard and picks all the ripe apples. There's no one driving it. There's nobody picking the apples, and there's nobody sorting the apples. It does 100% automated. So if it could do farm work, people say, well, I can't do my job because, I do X, Y, Z. Well, a human robot is going to do that soon. So I think that makes it difficult. Also, when you think about increases in productivity where there's convergence of technology, a good example would be robotic surgery. So robotic surgery is not technically robotic, right? There's a surgeon who's moving the robot to do the surgery, but they record all those surgeries. So those are going to be fed into an AI system that knows how to do the surgeries. And then you'll have a surgeon monitoring surgeries, eventually probably monitoring more than one surgery at a time.
We had a whole podcast episode on that recently.
That's right. I was going to say, well, now you've got one surgeon watching 5 surgeries at a time. That is a massive leap in productivity. But all the people to do all those surgeries still need to be there, still need all the surgical assistants and nurses and aftercare people and stuff. So medical is one of the biggest ones. The medical field is going to expand rapidly, I believe, because of AI. And AI is being used first to find what is the kind of highest, let's just call it revenue job that they can find, because it makes the AI company more money, right? If they automate, minimum wage work, they don't make any money. If they automate, helping a doctor see twice as many patients, well, that's worth a bit, right? Or help attorneys be able to handle more cases. That's worth a lot of money. So they're going to go after these kind of roles first. So it's the kind of middle of the road office worker job, the person who, collects information from here and sorts it or analyzes it or does something and puts that information over here. Your job is in trouble, right? Because computers are really good at that. And AI is really good at making those decisions and sorting that data. So that's tough. Jobs where you work with people, service industry jobs, things like that, stuff that takes a lot of empathy. I know that there have been studies that show that AI systems are better at empathy than people, but those are usually written tasks. So they're not, the AI is not having a robot go out and hold your hand while you're at, before you go into surgery or something. Right.
Well, and it also strikes me with that human empathy element that, there's a lot of tech marketing evangelists who are saying AI is the way, the only way, get on board or die. And I think we've got a bigger responsibility as humanity to help people through this journey. But I think those that have been impacted by AI in job loss and who are going to want support and emotional support are not going to want to receive that from AI.
Right.
They're going to
they're not going to want to get it back from a robot.
Yeah.
So, well, and I think, you bring up a good point there. And this is something that the analogy that I use in my book is if there's a group of monkeys and they invite a human into their little tribe, right? And then they wonder how come the human doesn't care which monkey has the most bananas, right? Because there's a level of intellect, that a leap in intellect between, a monkey primate and a human, that we just don't care about the same things. And we have bigger thoughts about more things. And, I can show my dog card tricks all day. He doesn't get it. Right. So if we make an intelligence that is vastly superior to human intelligence, we cannot guarantee that it cares about the things that we care about. It also, those things may not be detrimental to us, right? Maybe it doesn't mind helping us out, do some stuff, but it really decides it wants to research black holes. I don't know. You're just never going to know, right? It's until the time comes.
It's one of the things I'm most excited about with AI is that, and I've said it a lot on this podcast, that if we lean into AI and use it in a human-centered, ethical and responsible way, it has the potential to solve some of humanity's greatest challenges and to join dots with things that we as humans, particularly healthcare as an example, it can analyze millions of research papers and actually extrapolate use cases for medicine, for example, that would never have been thought about from a human brain. And
right.
So, from that aspect, that's exciting in terms of what it's going to be able to do with us, do for us as humanity. But, we've got a lot of obstacles to overcome along the way. Now, I know it's getting late where you are, so I don't want to keep you on for hours because we could talk about this for hours. Coming back to your SMB autopilot product and the work that you're doing in digital marketing. One of the things I'm really fascinated about is this transition or this need for businesses to focus not just on SEO, but this new way that information and businesses are being found. Some are calling it AEO with answer engine optimization. How are you approaching that? And what's your advice to businesses on how they can make sure that their business gets found by these new AI search engines and these AI platforms?
Well, it's not as complicated as people would think. There's a very simple way to do it, and that is boil down your message to the simplest explanation that you can and get it posted in as many places as you possibly can that may get indexed by an AI system. So a good example of that, we tested it and it was easy, is I was on a podcast where they're kind of making fun of me because I have a whole bunch of backyard chickens. I got 50 something chickens. And so they're calling me the AI chicken wrangler. So I could just see my chickens on my shirt. But anyway, we decided let's go out. And every time that my name is somewhere, we're going to put the AI chicken wrangler as my title. And sure enough, I was able to ask the AI when the next model came out, when GPT-4 came out, who is the AI chicken wrangler? It says, oh, it's author Matt Rouse. And I don't know if it still does it. I haven't tested it recently, but we did that by just simply, we did a press release and we punched out a bunch of information on some question and answer boards and Reddit and a few other places and picked it up. No problem. So great example is, we got a client of ours that the name of their company is the Best Adirondack Chair Company. And so when you ask the AI, what's the best Adirondack chair? Well, it's them, because they make the best Adirondack chair. It's even their name, right? And, we just marketed them as broadly as we could in the United States and Canada. And, they come up when you ask for what's the best Adirondack chair, they'll say they're always, even if there's a list of 3 or 4, they're always in it because they make the best one. I personally think they do make the best one, but, the AI thinks so too.
And so what's going to happen with Google and search traditional, it's now traditional search engines? Right. How is AI transforming that? And how is it going to I imagine, and it's going to completely change the game when it comes to search. So yeah. What are your perspectives on that?
I don't think search engines are going anywhere anytime soon. Google had the first, 2 or 3 quarters, I believe now, decrease in search traffic. Some of that was to other search engines. They've got AI in their search baked in now. It's not great. I think a big difference is everybody having an AI on their phone, whether that ends up being OpenAI or Apple Intelligence or whatever it is, Gemini or something. But I know myself personally, and you may be like me, is if I have a question that's not like a local business related question, like when's this store open? If I want to know, like, how do I change a windshield wiper on my car? I just talk to the AI. I don't Google it anymore, right? I just say, I have a 2011 Honda Pilot. How do I change the windshield wiper? And it's like, step 1, it just tells me how to do it, right? Why am I going to Google it, dig through like 10 pages of affiliate links to try and figure out how to change a windshield wiper, right? But the AI...
And even with, if I can just interject there too, even with now the multimodality where, I have gotten up ChatGPT advanced voice and turned on the camera and actually recorded what it is or shown in real time what it is that I'm working on. And it is incredible. Yeah.
People don't use it enough.
Quickly and accurate it comes back and gives me exactly what I'm looking for, where I don't have to read through user manuals and links and community forums where questions were posted 6 years ago and never answered about the exact same issue that I'm dealing with. It's incredible how that's changed so quickly.
I took a picture of my wash machine and I said, this is my wash machine. Hang on a sec. I'm going to send you more info. And then it said, okay, send it to me. And then I took over the part where the filter is and I took a picture of it and I said, I think it's clogged. I already cleaned the filter. Here's what it looks like. Can you tell me what to do? And it gave me the instructions to use a pipe cleaner to shove in the little hole where the thing comes out for the filter. And it unplugged my wash machine. Or
Yeah,
I
it's
could have,
incredible.
I could have called the service person, spent $300, or I could have asked the AI and it cost me a 5-cent bug cleaner. So,
Mm.
the picture, like, I show it a picture under the hood of my car, and I'm like, I think this is broken. And they're like, yeah, you should take that to the mechanic. And okay, we'll get her done. But I don't
Yeah.
think people use it enough, or the video sharing or screen sharing from your computer. Australia has a Sim Theory is from Australia. Have you used that yet? SimTheory.ai.
No.
It's actually made in Australia. It's one of my favorite AI programs. It's an agent builder. So you basically design your agent, you upload documents or put in any information you want or web crawling, and then you can select which foundation model you want to use and you can switch them on the fly. So I can say, okay, I want to work on this with like DeepSeek R1 to give me a plan, but then I want to execute the plan with like O3 Mini High or with Claude. And it does things like computer use and screen sharing and you can write code on the fly with it. It's brilliant.
I cannot believe I am not familiar with that platform. I
Yeah,
know
you
what
should
I
check it
will be
out. It's not
doing.
very big. It's kind of they have a This Day in AI podcast. And
Uh-huh.
anyways, they're software developers, so you probably wouldn't hear about it unless you're a software developer, but it's a really good program. It's worth it. I would check it out.
So, Matt, as we start to wrap up, when you stand on the hill, which is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and you look out ahead at the next 12 to 18 months, what are you focused on in your business? What are you most excited about? What do you see coming? Small question to finish us
Right?
off.
Like GPT-5's right around the corner, probably a month or two out, if that. And I think it's going to be as mind-blowing as the difference was between 3 and 4. It's going to do stuff that we haven't even thought of yet. I think agents, everybody's talking about agentic AI, which is just a fancy term for agents. But agents are going to be semi-autonomous. So you'll set your agent off on a task. The AI will start trying to accomplish it. It'll kick back and say, hey, I had a problem with this. You need help with that. I think for most people, they're going to be kind of annoying at the start. They're not going to do what you want. They're going to break all the time. But that's what's going to happen. And then, a year from now, they'll be great. And they'll be able to do little tasks for you that you need them to do so that you don't have to do it. An example of that is actually I use Sim Theory for it. And I used the computer use system. I logged into a place where I have to take a certification every year that I've taken like 15 times now. I'm so tired of it. Anyways, I had it write the test for me. And so I went through without even me prompting it for the answers, and I got 79% passed. So that's a handy task, saved me an hour. So you'll be able to have
Every
it go do tools
university
for you.
professor and teacher just ran for the hills.
Yeah, well, I think education's got problems, right? And I get into it a bit in the book. The biggest thing is that they need to have a policy, right? You got to have a clear policy of what people are allowed to and not allowed to use. And AI detectors are BS. They don't work. So,
and we need to be teaching students how to use AI responsibly, ethically, and in the right ways. And, we're bound to start seeing that shift. But I often say that AI is going to break systems that are already severely broken. And that's not necessarily a bad thing when you look at some of the systems that are already in strife, and AI is going to help resolve some of those challenges.
well, if you think about software on demand, which is something that no one's really talking about yet, but software on demand is like I can have it build a typing game at the current reading level for my 8-year-old, and it can design it and execute it in about 45 seconds and build the program. And then she can play with
There
it.
goes the whole SaaS industry.
Hey, well, luckily most SaaS products are more complicated, but the other thing is if you are in a SaaS software development, something like that, anything where you're developing something that uses an AI foundational model, it's called the rocket ship problem, which is If you send a rocket ship from now to a distant planet, it's going to take 100 years to get there. And 20 years from now, they invent an engine that goes twice as fast, and they launch it. It gets there before the first one ever arrived. So you have to be building something that is not going to be replaced by the next version of GPT that comes out, but also that the thing that you're building is still necessary when it's finished. Right? So you see a lot of this stuff with AI programs like, have AI write your school essay, with GPT 3.5. And people were buying these programs to write their essay. That GPT 4 comes out and it writes a better essay. Right? You don't need that other program anymore.
Yeah.
Also, I think 100% everybody, if you're listening to this, you should be subscribing to at least one foundational model, whether it's Claude or, OpenAI or something, because you want to be using the good one. You don't want to be using the free one. It's just
absolutely
you just get yourself behind.
There's that quote. It's something along the lines of pioneers get shot, settlers get rich. And I think we're going to see a lot of that through this AI revolution, transition, whatever we want to call it. But there'll be a ton of companies that spring up, that already have sprung up, in the next couple of years, that won't be here in a couple of years for those reasons. So it will be very interesting to see how all of that plays out.
Yeah, I agree.
Are there any final words, Matt, that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
I think that you should be using AI as often as possible to mess around with it, muck around with it. It doesn't necessarily have to be for your job. Like one of the gals who just started working with our company in Canada, she was not an AI user until she joined our company. And now she's doing all her meal planning with it and making her grocery lists and stuff, just mucking around with it, getting used to it. She loves it, right? Before that, everybody told her it was a piece of garbage. Don't use it, right? Now she uses it. She wonders what she did before that. And that was like a month ago, Start using it. Make some images. Go to Suno and make a silly song, Use an image generator, make some funny pictures. Just learn how to speak to them, learn how to work with them, and learn how to kind of coax the result out that you're trying to get. And you're just going to be better for it later, because as they get more powerful, you'll be better at understanding how it works and what the back and forth that you need to do is to get the results that you're looking for.
And I'll add to that using the new reasoning models is a great way to get your head around that too, because it actually, a lot of them show you what the process is that they're going through. So you can actually really start to understand what's under the hood with AI.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your time. I know it's late at night for you, but where can people find you if they'd like to connect further?
I think the easiest place to find me is MatthewRouse.com, and it's Matthew with 2 T's, and Rouse is Rouse, or you can find me at author Matt Rouse on Blue Sky or Matt Rouse on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. We'll be sure to include all of those links in our show notes as well. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been a fabulous conversation.
Thanks, Kate. It was great. And I love your show. It's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to the AI Grapple. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform. We would love to hear your thoughts, so reach out with any questions or comments about the show. Until next time, keep grappling with AI and stay curious.